Hello everyone, this is Zook and welcome to the content patch for November 12, 2012. Yes, it is I again. For those of you that are new around here, last Monday I was tasked with hosting the show as well because TotalBiscuit was way too busy to provide you with, to provide me actually with the necessary audio files to put the video together. We basically reached an agreement regarding content patch. I do the editing, I do the article research, summarizing of articles, putting together the graphics assets, putting together the video, fixing audio, fixing everything, encoding and uploading, and it gives me the audio file, which is technically the most important part of the video. So this fixes two issues. First off, it allows him to have this video up while he is at events, which was one of the problems we were faced with. He does a lot of traveling, so of course having time to edit the video while you're away and encode it and upload it is kind of improbable, so this works much better. And secondly, it gives him more free time when he's at home to make other kinds of videos like WTF is or other kind of footage, which is, it's pretty good, I guess. Obviously I'm getting paid for all of this. This isn't some sort of fanboyish effort. I'm actually an independent contractor employee, sort of. So yeah, it's all good. TotalBiscuit right now is on a bus heading towards Dallas from Austin after finishing casting Lone Star Clash last night at 12 midnight, I think. He had to get on a bus at 4 a.m. So you can imagine that's a bit taxing for someone after working for God only knows how many hours, having to not sleep so you can catch a bus and head off to another city where you have to catch a plane. Yeah, a bit tiring. So I will be handling content patch today. Before I get into the news, I'm gonna plug myself again because I've gotten a lot of subs and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback after last Monday's episode, so please click on the channel if you want to visit my channel and see what it is that I do. Again, it's not gaming related, but it's all good. And also, if you click now, the window will open in a new one, so the show will not be interrupted. So go ahead and head on out and see if you're interested in what Zook does. So yeah, let's get on with the news and see what's been up this week. First up, Dan Houser, Rockstar's head writer and vice president for creative, talks about the upcoming 5th installment in the series. More of an opinion piece on failure in games and why we like games that are difficult. Black Ops 2's Unreasonable Enforcement policy. Blizzard sued over Battle.net authentication. And Silicon Knights' massive loss against Epic Games in a trial. Alright, to start off, in a recent article posted in the New York Times, actually this is more of a Q&A than an article, Dan Houser, Rockstar's head writer and vice president for creative, answers a few questions about the upcoming 5th installment in the Grand Theft Auto series. Now, GTA 5, as all of you probably know by now, is scheduled for release in 2013, more precisely in spring of that year, and it's going to be the first major title in the series in 5 years, so that's quite exciting. The new game is also set in a fictional Los Angeles called Los Santos, and instead of dealing with thug drama and petty conflicts, it tackles on a larger theme, a deeper theme if you will, which is the aftermath of the credit crunch and the housing crisis. Now, one of the key selling points in this game, in my opinion, is going to be the ability to play 3 different characters, 3 main protagonists, as opposed to the previous series 1, which will have 3 different stories, and as Dan Houser points out further on in the article, their stories will not intersect once or twice, but they will be completely interwoven, which in my mind makes for more content, which is always great. He gets asked about the most difficult part of creating a game such as Grand Theft Auto, and of course the obvious answer would be creating the world. It's an open world game, and they have to make sure that all the elements integrate into it properly to create a proper environment for the player and all that. And of course, he goes on to praise the concept of open world as if it was a new thing. I mean, he's right. Open world games have an enormous strength creatively. He says that you can shoot stuff up and drive a car and fly a helicopter, but you can also exist in the world passively. And creating an open world game, a good one, is a step forward towards materializing Rockstar's vision of what interactive entertainment is supposed to be like. I mean, that's great, he's right and everything, but open world is not a new concept. It's been done in MMOs since the dawn of time, and it's also been present in all the Grand Theft Auto games, even the top-down ones. So, it's not a new concept, it's more going according to plan, which is great, as Grand Theft Auto was a very successful game series. Later on in the article, the issue of the Federal Trade Commission inquiry gets brought up. Basically what happened is, in 2005, a class action suit was filed in the Federal District Court in Manhattan. GTA San Andreas contained a hidden line of code, and that line of code was uncovered by players using a program called Hot Coffee. And that line of code also happened to contain a very explicit sex scene, which is, as per usual, always causes a ruckus with everyone. So games were pulled from the shelves, and stores were threatening to not restock them until the scene was removed, and in the end Take-Two had to pay $20.1 million to settle the lawsuit. So that wasn't an easy hit for Take-Two. But they bounced back and they're fine now. A bit later on, Dan Houser talks a bit about what it was like to develop such a game from a British standpoint, because he and his brother are both British. They lived in London their entire lives and only recently moved to New York. So they had a unique perspective on what it was like to be American, because in the 70s and 80s, they got force-fed American culture pretty hardcore. 80% of the movies that were on TV were American. Music was sang in an American accent. He says that a lot of products were American, so they were faced with this culture early on. So they got a pretty good grasp on what it means to be American. So the games don't feel foreign, but they're satire of American media culture, and you can tell that if you play them. Now, this article is by no means anything controversial, but what it is a little insight into a developer's mind. One of the weird things I saw in this article was the fact that Dan Houser basically watches no gangster or crime shows whatsoever, which is quite opposite what I expected. He hasn't seen The Wire, doesn't watch Sopranos, doesn't watch Boardwalk Empire, doesn't watch Breaking Bad, which is pretty weird because they're all like amazing shows. But he says he does it for professional reasons. He avoids all gangster-related, crime-related, organized crime-related shows for professional reasons. That's quite admirable because there's so much inspiration that you could take from a show like The Wire, for example. It's incredibly good. So applying that to a game would of course increase the quality, but originality does have its perks, and of course it's always admirable when someone takes that path. Towards the end of the article, Dan Houser says that they're currently working on editing and fixing, removing, replacing, and adding, comparing it to writing a book and having 2 million spelling mistakes. So if you want to read the rest of the article, just feel free to click the link in the description. It's all there. It's just a little bit of insight into a writer's mind, and you can see like how someone approaches a game such as this and what kind of vision they have when developing. Because we only get to see the finished product and we don't get to see the process, and the process is quite fascinating in the end. Now, the next article is more of an opinion piece than news, but I think it's interesting nonetheless because it touches on human nature, which has always been a very interesting topic for me, and also how games interact with us as humans on a more primal level, which is, again, something that people should know, why they play what they play and why they enjoy them. Basically, the article is about why we love games that hate us, but it's not really about games that hate us in an unfair way. It's about games providing a challenge, which is what they're supposed to do in the first place, in my opinion, unless you're specifically not after that, in which case, that's why genres exist. So the article, or the author of the article, details his personal experiences with XCOM a little bit, interjecting a few quotes from pretty well-known game developers and producers, the first one being from Garth DeAngelis, who is XCOM Enemy Unknown's producer. He says, games at their core are about solving problems. The magic ingredient of games is interactivity, and as game designers, we want that interaction to be compelling and meaningful. The problem should be yours to resolve, and failure should be a real option. But if there isn't an actual problem to solve or a challenge to overcome, then what's the point? He's perfectly right, because we as human beings are wired to want to solve problems, to want to overcome challenges. We are where we are now because we have that innate ability to want to fix everything. Fix our problems, fix everyone else's problems, create problems that demand a solution, and then find the solution. It's our fuel. It's what we work on. At a neural level, that is. So, of course, games that manage to appeal to that instinct in an efficient manner will provide many hours of fun and many hours of stimulation for the brain, which is, in the end, what we crave. You don't want to sit there and play something that is completely brain dead. You always want to interact with the game in a way. Use your brain to fix things. And it's how games should be in the end. Derek Yu, the creator of the roguelike Spelunky, says, I believe experimentation is paramount to the experience. That's one of the reasons I get so fed up with excessive hand-holding in games. It takes away so much of the enjoyment of experimenting with new mechanics. To me, it's like treating the player like a kid in the worst possible way, with all the condescension, but none of the playfulness. DeAngelis also says further on that I think there's an ebb and flow to a lot of trends and designs, and for the past 5 years, we've been in a sort of hand-holding mode. Many games would have normal modes, but there were cakewalks, and there even were some games that literally played the game for the player. I think there was this mentality of extreme accessibility. Let's appeal to any and everyone, even if it's a person not interested in our genre traditionally. And there was this mindset that everyone should win the game and losing is bad. So it made the game easier for everyone, even hardcore fans of the genre, you know? So yes, it's true. There has been a trend of excessive hand-holding, and that ties to not necessarily what's going on in games, but what's going on with people in general. In a country like America, where accessibility and ease of access to everything is so popular nowadays, games are following the same trend. They're taking after a social model, which is not necessarily a good thing. You know, I don't want to trash Americans or anything, but they have it so easy. Like, if you're middle class in America, you're set. Everything is fine. You can always have whatever you want, whenever you want. You always get help with whatever you want. If you travel to another part of the world, you'll see that it's not the same everywhere. Life is not easy. You can't get anything and everything at any hour of the day and night. You have to actually work for something, or you have to actually use your brain to find it, to solve a problem. There are more problems posed in different parts of the world than there are in America. And when game design is influenced largely by Americans, they're going to appeal to their own demographic through games, which is what they've been doing for a long time now. And that's why we have so many productions that are so easy nowadays and that hold your hand and lead you to the victory, which is not good. Anyway, the article is interesting. There are way more quotes here to read from people that know what they're talking about. I'm just going to read one more before I go. Jane McGonigal talks about the concept of fiero in her book, Reality is Broken, DeAngelis says. Fiero is an immense sense of pride a player feels when triumphing over adversity, and it's one of the most powerful emotions an interactive experience can provide. But fiero is absent if there aren't real odds to overcome. I can't remember her exact words in the book, but there have been actual neuroscientific studies analyzing the brain, concluding that fiero is one of the most intense rushes human beings can experience. You know, those moments where you throw your hands over your head in exultation because you just won a championship or solved a seemingly impossible problem. So scientifically, challenging games are rewarding because they trigger some of the most powerful, genuine emotions in a player. And that is definitely true, and we can all feel that when we've passed an exam or done something that seemed so difficult and in the end everything was fine. So do read the article, it's in the description, and it's important, I think, to understand as to why games are the way they are and why challenging quality games will always be regarded higher than just easy hand-holding productions. Next up, Treyarch have recently posted their security and enforcement policies for Black Ops 2 on the official Call of Duty forums. If you had not heard, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 will support YouTube live streaming and Twitch streaming. One of the sections that caught everyone's eye in this list of enforcement policies is the offensive live streams or unauthorized live stream content. Any user who is found to have offensive or unauthorized content in their live stream is subject to penalty. Offensive content includes but is not limited to foul language, racially charged language, and nudity. Unauthorized content includes but is not limited to unlicensed music, TV shows, movies, and brand logos. Now the last, extreme offenders specification. It says, extreme offenders will also be reported to the live streaming service provider and may have their accounts revoked by that service provider. The problem with this is as follows. Twitch TV has their own set of policies. One of the policies that will get your account banned was if you stream non-gaming content. If any user refuses to properly categorize their content, either when requested that they move it or by moving their content back multiple times after being moved out of Twitch TV after multiple warnings, we may respond by closing the account entirely. Other issues aren't really subject to account termination as much. So Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is definitely a game that attracts a certain kind of audience, as a lot of us know by now, and it's also a game that will be very, very popular. Most certainly. So you're bound to have idiots on the internet cursing and flaming and everything. And I get it why Treyarch want their game to be full of polite people, but that's never going to happen. And so I think that this measure is slightly too extreme because, for example, you don't have to be addressing someone if you're streaming. You don't have to specifically aim your curses at someone that is watching you or you're talking to. You can be talking on Skype, you can be talking by yourself, you can be talking, I am a very vulgar person. When I play games, if I were to have an audience, I would curse like a trucker. But that doesn't mean that I would be addressing someone specifically. So should Twitch TV ban my account because I'm getting headshot randomly over and over again? No, they should not. And Black Ops 2 should not have the power to do that because Black Ops 2 may only be a very small part of the content that I stream. So why should I get banned? Because they feel like they should go over the top with their security and enforcement policies. So granted, I fully agree that unauthorized content should not be allowed, like music, TV shows, movies, etc. But for example, a brand logo, as the author of this article pointed out, what if you're wearing like a Nike t-shirt or Adidas cap or something that sports a brand logo? Is that subject to termination? Because that wouldn't be fair. Let's face it, a lot of us have brand clothing, a lot of us have Razer t-shirts or God only knows what. So you're bound at some point to have these offenders. But they're not really offenders, they're just people streaming and having clothes on. So, I'm not sure if that will apply. This was just something that the author of the article pointed out. But I think that Treyarch is going a little bit too far with this little enforcement policies because it should be up to Twitch and not up to them who gets banned for what. Next up, Blizzard is getting sued over Battle.net authentication. A person called Benjamin Bell is seeking damages for consumer fraud, unjust enrichment, negligence, breach of contract, and bailment. He says that Blizzard is deceptively and unfairly charging some users to secure their data from hackers. Now that allegation in itself is enough to completely dismiss this trial. I am by no means a Blizzard advocate. I did play WoW for 6 years and I loved it. I don't play any Blizzard games right now. I did buy Diablo 3. I did play it for a while and then abandoned it. So it's not like I'm their biggest fanboy. Quite the opposite. I do think that Blizzard has done a lot of bad and stupid things along the years. And of course they deserve some of the hate that's been aimed at them. But so far, this claim that Blizzard is unfairly charging users to secure data from hackers is quite ridiculous. Bell has referred to Blizzard's keychain authenticators, which cost $6.50. He's saying that Blizzard has made $26 million by selling them. So he basically equates Blizzard's offering of another option for securing your account to actually like sort of blackmail, like them forcing you to pay this amount of money, which is not that expensive in the end, but regardless, they're forcing you to pay this money so that they don't divulge your data to hackers. Come on. The suit also accuses Blizzard of unfairly requiring users to use Battle.net and says the company continues to negligently, deliberately, and recklessly fail to ensure that adequate, reasonable procedures safeguard the private information stored on this website. And he points to the Diablo 3 hacks that occurred in May as clear evidence that Blizzard has failed to take the legally required steps to alert. This trial it's built on very weak arguments because a lot of the information given here is false. Bell is seeking damages and an injunction to bar Blizzard from tacking on costs after games have been purchased. And he also wants to stop Blizzard from requiring players to sign up for a Battle.net account, which apparently contains a lot of private information that could be revealed if someone hacked your account. Now, Mike Morhaime posted a security update on the Battle.net website, and he says that there is no evidence that personal data such as financial information and credit cards, real names and addresses were compromised. There was no information or no evidence of that happening. Basically, the way hacks occur most of the time, I've gotten hacked 3 times. The way hacks occur most of the time is due to the player's fault and the player's inability to properly secure their computers. There are a lot of websites out there that have malicious software embedded into them, and a lot of them are unseen by the weaker kinds of antiviruses, antiviruses, let's call them that. So the way I got hacked was, I said, hell, it's not gonna happen to me. I don't browse websites that are that weird. And 2 months later, I get hacked. And then I change my password, and I get hacked again. And then I change my password, and I get hacked again. That was clearly due to malicious software being installed on my computer, or a keylogger, or something like that. Mind you, nobody had access to it. But the way hackers operate most of the time is they don't really sit there and try out passwords for your Battle.net account. What they do is hack forum databases. Because people, a lot of times, and this is totally wrong and never do this, but a lot of times they use the same passwords that they use on forums to log into Battle.net accounts, or the same email addresses that they registered with on forums to register for Battle.net. And so either they hack databases or they purchase databases. A lot of hackers are organized in networks and they dispose of a lot of money. So if a forum admin gets offered like, $10,000 for a forum or a database of like 700, 800, 10,000 people that have registered there, he's going to take that money because it's a lot of money. And then they're going to sit there and try and figure out what passwords match with what emails, and how many of those accounts are actual Battle.net accounts. And a lot of times with gaming forums, a lot of those emails will correspond to Battle.net accounts, especially on forums that are specifically tied to Blizzard games, such as Diablo fans or God only knows what theory crafting forums for World of Warcraft. But this might not be the same case in this scenario, but usually that's really what happens. That's how accounts get hacked. So if you ever do create a Battle.net account, or if you have one, don't use the same password and email to register on gaming forums. Also, don't use the same password and email for PayPal accounts because they target those as well. PayPal accounts and Battle.net accounts are like the prime targets for hackers. Basically, Blizzard, what they did last year was change the rules for the authenticators. And that caused a bit of a scandal. Basically, before you had to input a code every time you logged in, and now you only have to do it if you log in from a new location for the first time. And so they say that many people are speculating that the recent hacking wave, recent being in May, was down to hackers mimicking the IP identifiers and slipping past Blizzard's authentication servers. That is just speculation. Again, Mike Morhaime says clearly that no personal information was compromised, but he does recommend that North American users change their passwords. So I think Benjamin Bell is going on a bit of a stretch here by suing, because Blizzard have already replied to this, and they have said that a lot of the information that this trial is built on is false. The suit is without merit and filled with patently false information, and we will vigorously defend ourselves through the appropriate legal channels. So again, they seem to have their shit down pretty well. But in the end, if I look at it objectively, the option of an authenticator is not a bad thing. It's not. It's just an extra option to secure your computer. But when it comes down to actual security, it's up to the individual user to take the necessary means and precautions to not have their stuff hacked. So having a proper antivirus and not using the same email and passwords for random shitty forums that you sign up for is generally recommended. And finally, Silicon Knights has been ordered to destroy all games and all code related to the Epic Games trial. Back in 2007, Silicon Knights filed a lawsuit against Epic Games for their inability to provide their licensees with a working Unreal 3 engine, which they were developing at that time. It was quite crucial that all licensees were getting the engine at the established date. One of the licensees was, of course, Silicon Knights, which were working on a game called Too Human for Xbox, which depended on this particular engine. And so Epic apparently was accused of failing to provide it, and Mark Rain stated that this morning we were served with a lawsuit by Silicon Knights. We believe the claims against us are unfounded and without merit, and we intend to fully defend against them. One of the allegations was, rather than provide support to Silicon Knights and Epic's other many licensees of the engine, Epic intentionally and wrongfully has used the fees from those licenses to launch its own game to widespread commercial success while simultaneously sabotaging efforts by Silicon Knights and others to develop their own video games. Epic Games at that time was working on Gears of War and Unreal Tournament 2007, which were both pretty successful, I guess, and Silicon Knights was apparently very upset, and so they sued them. Unfortunately, that didn't quite work out for them, because Epic managed to win that trial, as was announced in May 2012, and receive $4.45 million in damages. A tweet from Mark Rain stated that, "Case over, jury finds for Epic on all counts." Now, the reason that went so well for Epic Games was that the jury pretty much sided with their counterclaims, and their counterclaims were that Silicon Knights had breached the Unreal Engine license agreement, misappropriated Epic's trade secrets, and infringed Epic's copyrights in the Unreal Engine 3 code. So Silicon Knights grabbed a large chunk of the Unreal Engine 3 and slapped on a few other features and called it their own. So in the end, it wasn't their own, it was just a ripoff, and that's more than reasonable for a jury to conclude. Now, Silicon Knights, aside from being ordered to pay $4.5 million in damages, was also ordered to pay $4.7 million in legal costs for Epic Games, just like a, kick him while they're down sort of thing. And aside from that, they were ordered to remove all of the Epic Games technology from their own game engine, destroy the code for all prior versions of Silicon Knights games, and recall and destroy all of the unsold copies of Too Human and X-Men Destiny, both of which were using the so-called new engine, and also destroy any code from the currently in development, The Box, The Sandman, and The Siren and The Maelstrom. So 3 titles that Silicon Knights had no plan to announce or release anytime soon were just unveiled in the most shameful of ways, and now they have to be taken apart and have the license code removed from them. Also, just like a final slap in the face, Epic also has to give their okay on any other games that Silicon Knights are working on. The direct quote is, "The company must allow Epic to independently verify that Silicon Knights game engine no longer contains any of Epic Games' licensed technology, handing over all computers, servers, databases, and everything else for Epic to access and check for itself." So quite a significant defeat for Silicon Knights, and quite frankly, for a company of 5 or less people, it's a pretty major kick in the balls, and I'm not sure how well they're going to do getting back from this, but this was, in the end, pretty humiliating for them, and as a word of advice, don't steal other people's shit. It's not good. Alright, that's going to be it for now. Thanks everyone for watching Content Patch. This has been Zook, aka the Champ, as I like to call myself for absolutely no reason whatsoever. If you want to check out my channel, feel free to click the link in the description. It's all there. TotalBiscuit should be back tomorrow bringing you videos again. He is currently on a plane, on a train. God only knows what other means of transportation he is employing. But this is a business, it's a job, it's a company, and sometimes we have to take over for the ones that are too busy to handle their responsibilities. You gotta do what you gotta do. The replies have been mostly positive last time I covered the show, so hopefully they'll be so this time as well. I made a conscious effort to slow down on the number of ahs and ums that I'm using. Yeah, I'm not a professional newscaster. Deal with it. It happens. So viewer remarks are still not a thing right now, but they will be soon enough once TotalBiscuit decides how he wants to handle them. And I guess I won't see you anytime soon, hopefully, because I'm going back to my little drawing videos and my other shizzles and dizzles that I'm doing. Staying away from news for a while, hopefully. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully this hasn't been boring or anything, and I'll see you around. Have a good day. Bye-bye.